Let's plan a flight using Arinc Direct. When you go to the website, it'll bring you to this web page. It'll say Arinc Direct, and then on the left-hand side, it'll say Flight Planning with a bunch of tabs to the right. Right beneath Flight Planning, it'll say Create Flight Plan, which is where we want to be. You'll also see a bunch of tabs to the right of that as well that we will use a little later on. The tail number is important, the departure airport's important, the destination is important, the estimated time of departure is important, and the departure date is obviously important. The tail number, it should auto-populate. If it does not, you can drop down to a whole bunch of different tail numbers that this particular company has. In our case, we're going to be on 945 Golf Sierra. That defaults to Edge 45, and on the right, it'll verify the airplane you're flying, which happens to be a Gulfstream 4 SP. Our departure point today is going to be Teterboro, so we type in KTEB, and we notice at the bottom it says Teterboro Airport, Teterboro, New Jersey. If we want to get information about weather and information, we'll press this tab. It says weather/info. Another page will pop up, and it will give us the current weather, give us a METAR, give us a TAF, and there's something else it'll give us if it has DATIS. In this case, Teterboro does, and we'll click DATIS. We will submit the request, and it will tell us what the current ATIS is. Information uniform, 210 at 10 knots, gusting to 16, pretty much right down runway 19. Another thing you can see here would be different kinds of NOTAMs if you want that. Standard NOTAMs are going to auto-populate, but there's also airport information. I like to click airport information because it's going to give me all kinds of information about the airport, all the frequencies I need, the FBO information, and if you look all the way down here at the bottom, you'll see how it populates. Teterboro Airport, there's the runways, the lengths, the width, information, the frequencies that we need to know, the FBOs that we need to know, and some other points of information, which might be, for example, Avis Rental Car, Enterprise, and some others. So it's a lot of information, and I use that as well. So I'll always ask for the airport information, and we'll look at that a little later on. Today, we're going to go to, let's say, Las Vegas, KLAS. When we type that in, it takes us to McCarran International, Las Vegas. We can also do the same thing in regards to weather and information. If I want to get the airport information, if I want to get the DATIS information, I can do that. I can submit the request. And today we have our METAR, we've got our TAF, and the current ATIS PAPA, winds variable at 3 knots, 10-mile visibility, always nice over here in Vegas. And of course we have the NOTAMs listed, as well as the airport information with frequencies and different phone numbers and email addresses of some services we may or may not use. Now, since we're going to Las Vegas, we're going to need an alternate. If you're not familiar with alternates here, you can find an alternate by clicking, well, Find Alternates. Find Alternates will bring up another page showing a maximum distance of 50 miles, defaults to 50 miles, with a minimum runway length of 6,000 feet. Now, you can filter that. If you want to go to 100 miles, you can put that. If you want to put runway lengths no less than 7,000, you can put 7,000 and hit filter, and it will give you all of the airports within a particular distance to the minimum runway length that you want. In this case, we're going to leave it alone, and we look at some options. We've got Henderson, but there's no ILS. Henderson weather is looking pretty good, so we can obviously choose Henderson today. But if we had weather concerns and we couldn't get into Las Vegas for whatever reason, I might choose North Las Vegas, where it's got an ILS Category 1, and of course it gives you the weather. So today we're going to hit Henderson. It's our primary airport. We'll come down and we'll hit Select. It's going to auto-populate our alternate. Estimated time of departure. Arinc makes it really simple. Let's say we want to depart out of Teterboro at 1500 local. Well, we put 1500 local, it'll automatically convert to Zulu, and it will give us the date. Now, the date's important because if you're flight planning for the following day or the day after, you need to check your date, your proper date. In this case, we'll say Sunday the 29th. That would be today. Or we can select tomorrow, which is Monday. Either way. Schedules, as far as cruise is concerned, climb, and descent. You can change this from Mach 8.0 to Mach 7.8 if you wish. Mach 8.2. Normally, we're going to keep it at the default, which is 8.0. Flight plan format. There's hundreds of them. I happen to like one way down at the bottom called X-Ray Bravo. And the reason I use X-Ray Bravo is because it will give me not only the VOR name and frequency, it'll also spell it out for me. So if they tell me I need to go to Dove Creek, I can see it says Dove Creek, and it also says Delta Victor Charlie. Payload. These are all of the people you're going to have in your airplane. If you got a full load, you got passengers and bags, you can do 189 times the passengers and the bags. Let's just say today it's going to be 2,500 pounds. Flight level, I'll leave alone. I'll let the system figure out what flight level I'm going to be at. But fuel on board, I always like to arrive with at least 6,000 pounds worth of fuel. Now, sometimes that's going to work, sometimes it's not going to work, depending on the distance you're going to go. Also, the runway that you're going to use. You might need to land at a lower weight, in which case you may want to arrive with 4,000 pounds. But I like to keep it at least 6,000 pounds. Reserve fuel, I'm going to put 45 minutes in here. We've got holding fuel, minimum to alternate, taxi out of 400, I leave that as it is. And it says include with the flight plan. I like the airport information that we spoke about earlier, and I also like standard weather. We can deselect flight risk summary. Now, you may or may not want to deselect flight risk summary, but I always do. After that, now we're going to pick our routing. If you notice over here, the map has already given us a basic routing as to where we're going to go, and it also populates the weather along the way. Let's hit routing, and we can choose several different routes. This is the optimized route. The optimized route is going to give you the optimized performance to get you from point A to point B. Now, if you don't know what optimized is, there's a little blue, it's in blue, and there's a little line underneath it. If you click that, it's going to tell you how they get you, or how they figure out an optimized route. And you can read all of this. So anytime that you see a line underneath a word, click it, and it will give you more information as to exactly what that is. Well, today they're offering an optimized route. We're going to go direct to Park, Yankee November Golf, the plane intersection J146, so on and so forth, to Bryce Canyon, and the Grandpa 1. That's the arrival that Arinc Direct is selecting for you. Estimated time en route, 4 hours and 46 minutes, and you're going to burn 14,140 gallons, cruising at Mach 8.0 at flight level 430. It's selected it for you. It's going to show you a distance of 1959, and you're going to have a maximum shear of 4. Over here, there's little alerts. You can click this if you wish. It will tell you that you have, in this case, around top of climb, you've got a convective segment going on, and you've got some turbulence going on in the same area between the top of climb and Yankee November Gulf. So if you want to look at that, you may. Over here, it's going to show you that routing. Below this, you'll see recently cleared. These are routes that have been filed and cleared, and this is frequently cleared. So normally they like to take you, for example, to Newell, J60, to Bryce Canyon and Grandpa. We just did that one. That's probably going to be cleared a lot faster than your optimized because they frequently clear that route. And of course, there can always be a reroute, but right now we're just planning. Today we're going to use the optimized route. And when you're done selecting your route, you come down to runway analysis. I'll always use a runway analysis. It says include runway analysis. The answer is yes, and that's it. I want everything, but you can also choose just the departure airport only if you want. You can use the current temperature, which will make the report a lot less wordy. I just click include runway analysis, and I'll get everything that I need. Now, when you're done doing that, you'll go to sync routing right here in this little green button. You sync the routing, and then it'll say preview flight plan. You hit preview flight plan, and it's giving you, as you can see, it's plotting it out. This is your preview. This is the flight plan you're going to use. And it's going through its little system as it says computing. And then it's going to pop up your flight plan. one of these days. All right, so now you've got your flight plan. And of course, I just lost it on you. Now you got your flight plan, and you're going to review it. Trip time, 4 hours and 46. Fuel on board is 6 hours and 56 minutes. We're going to burn 14,825 pounds, and the rest of the stuff we covered earlier. You'll also, see where it says file, assign recall number, save the disk, and so forth. We're going to go through this and most likely just hit file. I always like to look at a passenger brief. I always like to look at what's going on and what they think is going to be going on down the road, because it's not only going to show my route with all of the waypoints, it's going to show me what I can expect. Las Vegas is looking at clear skies on Sunday, some rain showers on Monday and Tuesday, clear skies and 100 degrees on Wednesday, 102 degrees on Thursday with no humidity. I mean, it's a great day to go to Vegas. So that's always nice to look at. Anyway, you come out of that, and you'll also see runway analysis, and we're going to look at that in just a couple of moments. But on the top of the X-ray Bravo format that I choose, you will see the airport data, Teterboro, McCarran, and our alternate, the elevation, the longest runway available, and the fuel that we have out of Teterboro, the fuel that we're going to end up with. Remember, I said I want 6,000 when we land at McCarran, and if we have to go off to Henderson, we'll end up with 5,502 pounds worth of fuel. This is the estimated time. Some other things to talk about, or look at actually, is the estimated time of departure, estimated time en route, estimated time of arrival, flight plan distance. There's a little box there. Flight plan distance. I'll always check the flight plan distance against the FMS to make sure that it's within 5 or 10 miles. Now, obviously, you're going to have a departure. You may have an arrival. That can change it just a little bit. And you got your wind information over here, but down at the bottom, not down at the bottom, but down a little more, you've got your taxi fuel, your destination fuel, your holding, your alternate, your reserve, what's required, and what you're going to have extra. So you've got extra fuel in your reserve, and that's going to equal about 6,000, of course, with your alternate. That should equal about the 6,000 that we said we wanted to land with at McCarran Airport. Gives us a total fuel today of 21,225 pounds. That's what we're going to need, and that's going to keep us airborne for 6 hours in 56 minutes. Our average wind that we can put into the FMS is going to be 241 at 34 knots. So we're going to have a headwind. That's what the minus means, the M of 29. And the ISA is going to be minus 3 degrees off standard. Our maximum shear is going to be a 5 out of 10, and that's going to be at Luxor, so a little turbulence on the way down. We've got climb. It should take us 23 minutes and 123 miles and 2,520 pounds of fuel to get to our climb. And of course, our descent information. Our weights, we'll go right down here to our ramp weight. When we first start off, 67,223. Our takeoff weight should be 66,823, which is far below the maximum we can take. And our landing weight is going to be 51,998, call it 52,000 pounds, which is far below the maximum landing weight on the G4. Our flight plan is shown right here, and it tells us that we're going to fly 400 until we get to Yankee November Gulf, and then we can climb to 430 because we'll burn off enough fuel to do that. Your clearance, you put all your clearance information in here. You can put your ATIS in here for the departure and the arrival. Check your waypoints compared to the FMS, the flight plan information, and then you've got Class 1 and Class 2 navlog. So I'll just go right over to Class 2, and here's our points. We got Park, we got Youngstown, that's Yankee November Gulf, we have Plane, we've got Gulf India Juliet, Juliet Oscar Tango, blah, blah. You can look at that inside the flight plan, make sure all those points are there. And then what we have is obviously, well, this is predicting where the rain will be if you're going to do a GPS. And then we have what? We've got our weather, because I asked for it. So all the weather information is in there. There's your winds aloft information at different altitudes. There's your segments along the way. Obviously, it's summertime, and there's quite a few segments going on. And our destination weather. So we've got all of that listed, as well as the airport information that I wanted. We've got Teterboro in there, and we have Las Vegas, and we also should have, and we do, Henderson, our alternate. So that's what our flight plan is going to look like. Now, if I wanted to file this flight plan, I would hit File. So let's do that. If we hit File, it's going to bring us to a separate page. And this page is going to give us our departure date, our departure time, and we need to put a little check here to confirm the departure date and the departure time. So we'll click that. Number aboard, we'll say there's 12 on board, and that includes the pilots and the flight attendant. Your pilot in command, you can select here, and your second in command, you can select from a list of different pilots that are available. Bring it all the way down to the bottom, and you will see email addresses. Filing confirmation. When this filing is confirmed, I want to know about it. So I'll put an email address in there. Happens to be my email, and I'll put my first officer or any other pilot that, or anybody else actually, that I want to receive a copy of that. And we got our edict time. It says also send to the same destination, yes, and a pre-departure clearance. So if I want to get the PDC sent to me, email, I'll click that, and then I'll hit File Flight Plan. So I'll file the flight plan. It's that simple. I'll get rid of this box, and now I'll go back to the top. And there's a couple of things I want to do. First thing I want to do is I want a package sent to me. So I will go to email/email package, and I will select that tab. I will look at where I'm going, Teterboro to Las Vegas, and then there's going to be a drop-down box. I want the flight plan, I want the weather brief, I want the route plot, I want the airport information we spoke about, I want that passenger briefing. I like to have the ICAO form as well. Normally that's only for international, but I like to take it. And I'll take the route wins. So I'll take all of this. Now, automatically, because I asked for runway analysis before, it says the runway analysis is complete, that we'll look at in a second. And that's going to automatically be included with my package. Then I'll come up here, and I will put the crew of November 945 Golf Sierra. And where do I want to send it? Well, I'll go to Send to Fax Numbers and look up. What's it going to look up? Well, we're going to take off out of, let's see, we're going to depart out of Atlantic today. So let's just say Atlantic. So I'll put TEB front desk, and I'll click that. And then I'll get out of it, because I'm going to have it emailed to them. And in addition to them, I want it emailed to myself and possibly my other pilot. When do I want it emailed? Well, I want this package sent to me at 2 hours before the estimated time of departure. And that H8325 is our recall number. That's the flight plan number that was assigned to our flight plan. Then I will hit Send Package. After I have the Send Package sent, I will come back up here to the top, to the tabs, and I will look at flight status. And I will click flight status, and it will show that my flight plan, Hotel 8325, Edge 45, going from Teterboro to Las Vegas, is pending to go. And that's all I need to do. What I will do is I'll look at the runway analysis at this point and make sure that everything is good in regards to the departure runway. Takeoff, we're going to take off from TEB in this airplane. I'm going to add that airport. Of course, notice the tail number, 945 Golf Sierra, and if it's a TAY engine. So I'll add the airport. I'm going to leave all of this exactly as it is, defaulted. It's 20 degrees of flaps is what we're going to use. And there's runways that we can select. We're just going to select all of them. And then I'm going to come and run analysis. That's going to pop up this screen. I'll make it a little larger. And we've got special departure procedures in case we have an engine failure. If we're going to be taking off on 01 today, there's a departure procedure there. Runway 6, there's another departure procedure if we need to. 19, But I believe we're going to take off today on runway 24. Let's just say it's going to be 24. And this is what it tells us if we have an engine failure. This is what we're going to have to follow. Just takeoff weights for runway 24 departure procedure require use of this tailored non-RNAV departure. So it's a non-RNAV departure. We're going to climb straight ahead at heading of 240. And at Teterboro DME 3.0, we're going to make a 15-degree bank climbing right turn. Now, it's not a 30-degree or 28-degree. It's a 15-degree to a heading of 280. Going to maintain 1,500 until crossing the Colts Neck VOR and passing the VOR, Teterboro VOR DME 4.5. Then climb and maintain 2,000 feet. Very similar to the Rudy 5. So you've got all of those in there, and then you've got a bunch of numbers. Let me just try to highlight this a little bit. So takeoff performance, 20 degrees of flaps. We're going to be taking off on runway 24. And the temperature today, let's say, is 30 degrees. So we look at runway 24, which gives us, let's bring this down a little bit. Runway 24, 6,013 feet available. Temperature is 30 degrees, so I'm going to go down to the 30-degree mark. And I can say for runway 24 that my maximum weight for this day, for this runway, at this airport, is 74,600, and that's maximum. And then we've got our 140 speed and a climb limit. If you look at the top, you'll see two things here. You'll see the maximum weight for taking off in your V1 speed, and you've got your climb limit. In this case, at 30 degrees temperature, V1 is going to be 140, our maximum weight is going to be 74,600, and climb limit, which means can we get above any mountains? Well, there's no mountains around Teterboro, so it's going to give us the same number. If you were out in mountainous areas, this number might be a whole lot less, and that would be your maximum takeoff weight. So we've run the takeoff analysis, runway analysis for takeoff. Let's get rid of that. Let's try landing. We're going to land today at Las Vegas, so KLAS, same kind of an airplane. Going to add that airport. And we've got two settings. We've got the 20 and 39 degree flap. We'll take all of that. All the runways are selected. We'll run the analysis. And that brings us to this page. Now, if you look here, you get landing performance for the Gulfstream with the TAE engine. These are approach flaps of 20 degrees. So we've got 20 degrees of flaps. And that's our approach flaps. Different runways. We've got one left, 19 right, and then we have destination airport flaps 39, and then abnormal flap for landing. Flaps 20, flaps 10, flaps 0, and we've got dry and wet runway, as you can see here. And then we also have the 60% factor and the 80% factor. Most of us are operating on the 60%. Some are operating or allowed to operate on the 80%. But let's use the 60% today. Let's use runway 19, which is a common runway for landing at Las Vegas. The runway length is 8,400 feet. There is a positive slope of 1.03. And what you see here is the tailwind of 10 knots, a tailwind of 5 knots, no wind at all, a headwind of 10 knots, and a headwind of 20 knots. If you look, you need to go worst case scenario here, but in this case, it's all showing 66,000 pounds, which happens to be the maximum landing weight allowed on the G4. So I would look at a 5-knot tailwind, quite honestly, and I'd look at the 60% factor, and I would see what that weight is. Whatever that number is the maximum landing weight that you should have landing at a particular airport. Now, of course, if the winds are favoring, you've got a 10-knot headwind, you need to get in somewhere, and the winds are actually giving you a 10-knot, the forecast, and the actual winds are actually 10-knot headwind, you can use these numbers. But I like to go worst case scenario. So I'll assume maybe a 5-knot tailwind just to see where I'm at. In this case, it's no issues. So I'm going to be landing with 39 flaps. I'm going to be landing, it's a dry runway, but I'll use the wet runway numbers just in case it is wet. And I come up with 66,000 pounds. Now, your actual conditions may differ. You may need to you might need to get into a particular airport, and the conditions might be dry, and you might not have any wind. Well, then obviously you're going to use the numbers that they give you here. But for planning purposes, I always like to know, can I get into a particular airport? We have other runways available, but in this case for runway 19 right, I've got 8,400 feet available. If I'm landing on a wet runway with a 5-knot tailwind, my maximum landing weight is 66,000 pounds, which is the maximum landing weight allowed on the G4. And if you remember earlier, we're going to land, I believe it was 52,000 pounds. So we're going to be far below the maximum landing weight. But anyway, I look at the takeoff and the landing runway analysis for every airport and every time I fly. And that is it. That is how you do a flight plan using Arinc.